So two things that we see, and I'm going to share one more. We see gossip, we see favoritism, and I'm sure there's many others that you guys can name. And if you don't mind, name some of them down in the comments. Maybe we'll come back and touch on some of those. Time won't permit that we go through everything, but I just wanted to share a few things that sows seeds of discord, something that God hates. We are all about striving to be unified in this body so that we can be there for one another, strengthen one another, encourage one another through the trials and tribulations that we currently are already going through in our lives, and for the ones that are to come. But the last thing I want to talk about, right? We're going to be coming out of Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 30. It says, a sound heart is the life of the flesh, but envy. So this is the third one we're going to talk about, the rottenness of the bones. And if you follow the channel, we talked about jealousy and envy, right? Because a lot of people don't realize that jealousy and envy are two different things. Sometimes when people talk about them, they kind of put them together, but they are not the same thing. And just really quickly, I'll give you a little definition of jealousy before we dive into this last piece with envy. Jealousy involves a fear of losing something you already possess, such as a relationship or a possession, to someone else. Rivalry, which basically a competition, like a competition between you and someone else. It often involves feelings of insecurity, possessiveness, or suspicion. And we did a video on jealousy and envy, right? And kind of breaking down the two of those. If you get a chance, go back and check that out. But right now, we're going to deal with this envy. Let's read Proverbs 14 and 30 again. It says, a sound heart is the life of the flesh, but envy, the rottenness. Listen, the rottenness of the bones. That word envy there means to feel uneasiness, mortification, or discontent. The word mortification means a feeling of humiliation or shame, as through some injury to one's pride or self-respect. So it says to feel uneasiness, to feel a humiliation or shame or discontent. To be content is happy enough with what one has or is, not desiring something more or different, satisfied. So to be discontent is obviously the opposite of that, right? So it says to feel uneasiness, mortification, or discontent at the sight of superior excellence, reputation, or happiness enjoyed by another. So it says, listen, if you are an envious person, you are falling under, you're being uneasy, you're falling under that mortification, or either you're discontent at the sight of superior excellence. What does it mean about superior excellence? Somebody that's flowing in their gift and what it is that God has called them to do, whatever it is that God has given them, they have mastered that, they're doing that, they're flowing in superior excellence, right? Not in the excellence meaning that they are higher than other human beings, but they're just flowing in what it is that God has given them, to the best of their ability, right? Like they're utilizing that in a strong way, right? They're not allowing that to go to waste. And this is why envy is so crazy, because listen, they're flowing in what it is God has given them. So obviously there's something that God has given you, but what he's given them isn't what he's given you. So that's why envy, there's a problem with when somebody is looking at what somebody else is doing and they're feeling the uneasiness, right? They're humiliated or they're shamed. Like, why would you be humiliated or shamed by what it is that I'm doing when I'm the only person that can do it? Right? God gave this to me. If I see you flowing in whatever it is God has given you, then why would I be humiliated or shamed or discontent or feel uneasy when God gave that to you? I can't flow in that. That's not mine, right? So this is why envy, it doesn't make sense, right? And this is why envy is a very dangerous thing. Let's read it again. To feel uneasiness, mortification, or discontent at the sight of superior excellence, reputation, somebody's reputation, or happiness enjoyed by another. You can be joyful and happy in your own life, right? Like, you don't have to be looking at what somebody else is doing and how they're living and feel humiliated or shamed. All you got to do is go and live your life. And I promise you, the joy of the Lord, the peace of the Lord, it will be upon you, and you'll start to experience not the same exact thing they're experiencing with their experience, but you experience that same joy, that same peace in whatever it is that you are supposed to be doing and how you are supposed to be living, right? Like, you shouldn't be injured. Like, there shouldn't be an injury to your pride or your self-respect, right? You shouldn't see somebody else's life and lose respect for your own life or feel like you're nothing because you're not living like that. That doesn't make sense. But these are some of the things that envy causes, right? Or these are some of the definitions of envy. Let's keep on reading. To repine at another's prosperity. Listen to the definition of repine: to complain at another's prosperity. Why would we be complaining about what somebody else is doing? If we're complaining and watching about somebody else's prosperity, and I don't think that only deals with money, it could be spiritually, whatever, like somebody really, once again, uh, living the fullness of what it is that God has given them the ability, to let's say in the spiritual, right? The ability to pray, to read their word, have a relationship with them, study the word, stuff like that. Because people sometimes see that and complain and talk junk about that, right? Like, why would we be repining at another's prosperity, whatever that prosperity is in their life? Why would you be complaining about that, right? Because if you're complaining and watching them like that, then that means that you are not tending to the things that God has given you. Let's keep reading the definitions of envy. To fret or grieve oneself, to grieve your own self at the real or supposed superiority of another. Uh-oh, there it is. And I didn't want to say it at first, when it first said superior excellence, because sometimes it's not even real. Sometimes the thing that you're seeing and that the life that you think somebody is living and the place that you think somebody is at, sometimes that's not even the case. So that's why it's really mind blowing, and you got to really be careful. And it's really dangerous to envy somebody else's life because you don't even really know if they're really flowing the way that they appear to be flowing. You don't even know if God is truly satisfied with how they're living, that God is truly pleased with how they're living. They could be a scoundrel behind closed doors, right? So this is why you should not be envying anybody else's life. But envy sows a heavy seed of discord in the body of Christ. Why? Because when you envy somebody, when you feel these type of ways in your heart and behind the scenes, then obviously you're not going to be able to flow in a unified manner. You're never going to be able to connect with this person or these persons in the way that God intended us to connect, because this is how you're feeling in your heart. But let's keep on reading. To fret or grieve oneself, to be grieving yourself at the real or supposed superiority of another, and to hate him on that account. There's no way that we should be in the body of Christ and have hate for anybody, right? We could dislike sin or hate a sin that somebody do, but there should be no hate in our heart for anybody, right? And if it is, that is a huge problem, right? That has nothing to do with God, right? We read in the scriptures where it talks about, how can you say you love God who you've never seen, but you can't love the brother that you see every day? That's impossible. Right? If you can't love this person that you physically see every day, then how can you possibly love God who you've never seen? It just doesn't make sense, right? But when we look at this goes on a lot. No, I don't want to say a lot. Let me refrain from that. And I try to make sure that I don't put, how can I say it? I don't want to say a lot, right? Because I don't know how much it goes on, but I know it goes on, right? So I'll say that we see some of this happen in the body of Christ. How much is it? Maybe it is a lot, but I don't want to say that because I don't 100% know that, but I definitely knows it happens, and it happens often, right? We see where people are envious of other people, and they're saying stuff about people in their sermons. They're making videos online about people, and they'll say, oh, no, it's because of this reason and that reason. But a lot of times it's because they're envious of this person. Because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll bring up how much money they have or where they're living. And once again, some of these individuals, they are scoundrels. They are fleecing the people. But why are you worrying about their money and what it is that they're doing? Worry about what it is that you're doing. If you feel like they're not doing the right things according to God and according to the gospel, then you do it. If you don't feel they're preaching the right things, then you go and preach the right things. Why focus on what they're doing? If you feel like your sister and brother is doing something that they shouldn't be doing in the body of Christ, then you go and do what it is you need to do to make sure you play your role to the best of your ability. But don't sit back and be complaining. Don't sit back and fret yourself because you think they're living some type of glamorous life that they're not. No, you focus on your own self, work out your own soul salvation, right? And this is something to think about, right? Um, what's meant for you may not be meant for me. We don't know how people got the things they have. We may not work as hard as they have to achieve the things they got. And that's something I know for a fact, right? There's a good amount of people that feel a type of way about somebody else's success. And once again, this is not just a natural success, it's also spiritual, because you have some people that do a lot of reading, that do a lot of praying, that do a lot of laying before God. And when we see God use them in a certain way, we feel a type of way in our heart about it. But it takes time to do that. It takes effort, right? It takes dedication, right? And the problem is that I've learned as I get older and older, and I had to learn about myself, is there were certain things that I wasn't able to do because I just wasn't focused. I wasn't committed. I wasn't convicted. I wasn't dedicated on those things. I never, even in the streets, even in the church, by the grace of God, I've never been one to worry about what somebody else is doing or feel a type of way about what somebody else got, right? Because I pretty much kind of understood even back then that what's for you is for you and what's for me is for me. I understand it even more clearly now that I'm saved. So that wasn't my struggle, but I did struggle with not being able to accomplish and do things because I just wasn't that focused on it. I just wasn't that committed to it. So I do understand that part, and I have went through that part, and there's still some things that I need to get done, right? But I see